Airing first on Asheville FM, WSFM LP 103.3 FM in Asheville, North Carolina, this is The Final Straw, a weekly anarchist anti-authoritarian radio show broadcasting from occupied Jaligi land in southern Appalachia. We bring you voices and perspectives from people, projects, and struggles around the world engaging in the long project toward liberation. You can email us with questions or suggestions at thefinalstrawradio@riseup.net or at protonmail.com, and send us letters at P.O. Box 6004, Asheville, North Carolina 28816. This show is brought to you by Firestorm Books, located at 610 Haywood Road. Firestorm is a locally owned cooperative specializing in offbeat, underground, and independent literature. You can find a sample of Firestorm's catalog plus a full calendar of events at their website, firestorm.coop. For this special midweek podcast release, we are presenting a conversation with 3 defendants who are in an ongoing legal battle with the city of Asheville. This group of 15 people, 3 of whom are speaking today, are facing felony littering charges in connection with a demonstration in December of 2021 against a targeted camp sweep in a local park adjacent to the downtown district of the city of Asheville. For this interview, we will talk about their case, the issue of mistreatment of houseless people generally, camp sweeps and what they mean specifically, the nationwide crackdown on mutual aid, their own activisms, and how to keep in touch with the situation and support the 15 defendants. You can read all about their case and keep up with this ongoing situation at avlsolidarity.noblogs.org.
My name is Elsa, and I have been involved in mutual aid in the area for, about a year and a half now, I guess. I'm also pretty heavily involved in the anti-war movement in the area.
I'm Nick. My pronouns are they, them. I'm pretty, new to the movement. Honestly, I don't know what political affiliations I would call myself. Just fuck all the fuck shit is just as it is. That's it.
Wow, Nick, I want that on a t-shirt. My name is Ant. My pronouns are they, them. Yeah, just political affiliation-wise, have been involved in mutual aid here in Asheville and just generally anti-state, anti-capitalist, abolitionist.
Hell yeah, thank you all so much. So we're here to talk about an ongoing kind of legal situation that y'all are very unfortunately being made to be caught up in. To begin with, will you talk about a little bit about the activism you were doing prior to your arrests and what precipitated those arrests?
So first, I just want to say that the voices here, there's 3 of us, but there are 15 people implicated in all of this. So everything that we say here is, for the most part, representative of the group, but also reflects our own personal opinions and things. So take that with what it is. But the larger group of 15 of us really range from a lot of activism experience. All of us, like we said, are fairly new to the scene, particularly here in Asheville, but there are some of us that have been doing this for a while and have put in a lot of work. But most of us, well, all of us for sure, are involved in mutual aid in Asheville. And we are part of Asheville Survival Program, which is a mutual aid organization here that mostly has been around for 3 years now at this point, since the start of the pandemic, organizing to do food distribution in the local parks, as well as we have a free store that is in a nearby neighborhood that provides groceries and grocery deliveries to folks. But all of us are united around just solidarity with the houseless folks that are in our community, which is kind of what brought us into the situation that we're in, is the work that we've been doing mostly for that.
And that work was like, could you talk a little bit more about the direct support you have been doing with the houseless folks in Asheville?
I can say a little bit about that because I wanted to add on to what Ant was saying. They talked a bit about the Free Store. There's also like a part of the collective of Street Side, which has been going on for I don't know the whole history, but like as long as like the Free Store has been open, so at the beginning of the pandemic, so it's like 2.5, almost 3 years, I think, and that concludes of like folks doing like gear distribution, so tents, blankets, sleeping bags at Aston Park every weekend. And we like provide coffee and food every weekend. And a lot with, I think Street Side has been a very big deal of literally having it be like the start of creating a community and connection with people who are living in the streets. Because like how else are you gonna actually like make connection with people if you don't like show up and get to know people and talk with them and also provide like resources?
We also do sometimes like respond to like immediate asks, like, if somebody runs into somebody whose tent got destroyed or something, then we can do like emergency asks of like, hey, I just ran into this person who's in crisis, like, can we get together some resources, that types of stuff.
That's awesome. That all sounds like really, really important work, and also it sounds like a lot of work. And I just wanted to like name that. The next question that I had was, so like, I would really love to talk a little bit about homelessness in Asheville, because like many, many places here, I guess in this so-called country, it's an escalating concern and an escalating situation that like a lot of people are faced with. Could you, from either your direct experience or from knowledge you've gleaned from elsewhere, would you speak on this and the elements which have made homelessness a more present reality for lots and lots of people?
Well, what a question. Yeah, Asheville itself has been really facing gentrification a lot lately. The housing market here is incredibly challenging, and a lot of like rental homes and things that were short-term rental homes have mostly been at this point converted into vacation rentals and Airbnbs, because Asheville itself has kind of made a name for itself as a tourist town, and tourism has just really forced its way into the way of life in Asheville. And the local city government and local businesses are really focused a lot on tourism at this point, at the detriment of the people that are living here. And really what's ended up happening is that like a combination of like not having any housing and a lack of support systems for folks that are facing housing issues, or just like in general, the lack of support systems that are like provided by the state has just made homelessness like really, really intense issue here. And on top of that, in combination with there not really being any available housing because of that tourism-based focus, the city has kind of made it a point to what feels like erase the existence of homeless people here in the city, basically cover it up and make the city look good for the people coming in from out of town. And what that has meant is that they're increasing camp sweeps. They did, I think, 26 in this past year. And the Asheville Police Department has really focused a lot on being present at these camps. And a couple of recent presentations from members of the police department have really linked homeless encampments to the violent crime that we're seeing in the area, which is like a narrative that honestly is super not true, and has basically taken advantage of a manipulation of a data set in a way that creates this narrative that the violence and the crime that is present in Asheville is as a result of the homeless population, which is just not true. So yeah, it's fucking tough being here.
And that sounds like it's such a like rough and manipulative line that I see being drawn here on the part of the government and on the part of like the business owners for the most part. So yeah, thank you for giving voice to that. You said that there had been 26 camp sweeps this year. Is that 2022 alone?
No, sorry, that is like within 2021.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I forgot that it was 2022.
No.
But yeah, I believe it's been 26 since January of 2021 up until the end of this month.
And has the frequency of the camp sweeps, has that gone up in recent years?
Absolutely. Yeah. It used to be that campers, like, they would get a notice of 7 days to leave their site. They now have 24 hours and sometimes not even that long. And there used to not be anti-camping legislation on the books for town government, for city government, and there's like actual anti-camping legislation. I think it came about in like 2010-ish, like after the Occupy movement, if I remember correctly.
Also, to like add to the number of sweeps and like what Elsa and Ant had said earlier, yeah, like it was from like 7 days, and then after all this bullshit, they were like, oh, we're gonna like just change the policy, which, by the way, like, fuck cops, and they like had this policy of it being 7 days, and they were able to like change this policy down to like 24 or 48 hours, whatever, without like telling people about it, because it didn't require any type of like budgeting changes. So they were able to just be like, oh, we're just gonna make this policy change, even though they don't fucking like abide by that. And even now, like Elsa said, like, they don't even do the 24 hours or the 7 days. They never did any of that. I think it was like a week or two ago that they had swept another encampment of like 20 folks or so. And the 26 encampment sweeps that have been like recorded and like talked about specifically by like that I've seen from Asheville Free Press, those are the ones that we like hear about, or that there's like video or something, but that also doesn't like include the ones that we don't hear about, or that we hear about weeks after, because then folks are finally able to be like reconnected. I'm sure it's more than like 26, and it fucking sucks.
Indeed. I don't want to harp on this too much, because like I think that lots of folks know what the mechanics of a camp sweep are, but for anybody who isn't familiar with this term, or isn't familiar with like how the cops usually roll in situations like that, could you describe like what typically happens in a camp sweep?
Yeah, totally. I think it definitely depends on the location of the camp. Something that has come about a couple of times, particularly here in Asheville, is a dual jurisdiction, or like a question of jurisdiction of like where these camps are actually located, whether it's on city property or whether it's on DOT, like Department of Transportation property. And depending on where that is, it can look a little different, but it can, range from the cops showing up and be like, you got to go get all your shit, or like something that we've seen at other like larger sweeps is them bringing in heavy machinery like bulldozers and just showing up with this equipment and telling people that they need to leave. And for the folks that aren't there and able to get their things, they are taking these bulldozers and literally leveling the camps, like people's personal belongings and everything, with a bulldozer, which is just absurd. Because if the people aren't there to collect their things, they're just taking it and destroying it. Honestly, like, it's violent and it's heartbreaking.
They also will sometimes try to use nonprofits that are supposedly there to support those communities to like help push people out, which is really messed up and weird.
Could you say a little bit more about that? I mean, I like absolutely don't doubt that this happens. Like, this sounds exactly like something they would do. I just would love to hear a little bit more about that.
So it's like they'll try to say like, oh, we're gonna help you figure out somewhere to go, or we're gonna do this or that, and there's not really a lot of follow through. They might put people up in a hotel for a little while, and then suddenly that hotel room is just gone, and there's no support. Like there's no like acknowledgement that this is like a long-term thing that people struggle with, not just something that you can magically fix by putting somebody in a hotel room for a few days. And they will try to have these social service organizations like come in under the guise of like caring and sort of like back the cops up in sort of a gaslighty weird way that just messes with people, and I think makes it hard for people to feel like they get any support, because it's hard for them to trust the organizations that are supposed to be there as, support organizations.
Thank you so much for going into that. I think that's a really important kind of thing to keep in mind when interfacing with this issue. Is it's not only the cops. Like, the cops do a lot, but it's also like the NGOs and the nonprofits who are complicit in this. So thank you for like teasing that out a little bit. So I feel like we could talk about the issue of homelessness and houselessness for a really long time. So I don't want to like get us too in the weeds here, but I'd love to like talk a little bit about y'all's arrest and what was happening at the moment or at the time. Would you talk about the circumstances surrounding y'all's arrest? You three and the other, did you say 15 people?
Yeah, 15 people. I don't know if you had anything more to say, but I can start there.
Oh, no. Yeah, like, I'd love to hear. I mean, I wouldn't love to, but like, would you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. Sorry, I was looking, I'm like 15, 14, but when I think about like how this started, I really remember the total fear that like waved over the community when people we know started like receiving door knocks at a like, oh my gosh, I don't remember when they started, like maybe January. People started receiving like door knocks, and some folks had started getting like picked up at work, because we were trying to figure out like what the hell was going on, and we heard like, not stories because it's true, but like of folks who were getting like arrested or found at work, and it's like, oh, we don't like know these people. Some folks were even getting like picked up from their cars, like getting pulled over and stuff. And then for me personally, I had found out that there was a warrant out for my arrest, and I was just like freaked out of like, oh, when is it gonna be my moment that a cop is gonna come knock on my door and like scare my family and me, or like when am I gonna get like picked up at work and have myself be like completely villainized and made of a scene. So I just remember that whenever we talk about like the beginning, I'm like, oh, that whole fear, because it was like weeks of just being terrified no matter where I went, wherever like people went. Yeah, if someone else wants to jump on, I'm getting teary.
I'm so sorry. That is fucking terrible. I'm so fucking sorry that y'all had to go through that.
Yeah, the arrest period was pretty crazy. I just want to say, well, first of all, side note, I love you, Nick. I'm glad you're not doing that anymore. Yeah, all of this kind of, did you kind of like want us to talk about like the events that are surrounding like these charges? Is that kind of like what you're asking about?
Yeah.
As well?
Yeah, as much as you can say.
Cool. Yeah. So just like narrative wise, at the end of December, there was an event held in the city that was made to bring attention to kind of the issues that we've been discussing up until this point. Basically, overall, the way that the city has up until this point been handling homelessness in Asheville. And it was really just drawing to attention to something that we have like really been focusing on a lot, which is the issue of sanctuary camping. Basically asking the city to provide a space for people who want to camp and do it safely and do it in a way that has infrastructure for hygiene, like porta potties, infrastructure for trash collection and disposal, and just overall just like a place for people to be able to be outside, living outside in a camp community, which is something that like has really been coming up more and more with these sweeps. And also this issue really got brought up a lot in the December months and things because of a lack of just overall shelter options for people who are living on the streets, who are wanting a place to be inside during colder weather. And as at this point, like the city has not really provided a lot of infrastructure for shelters in cold purple, which is basically nights when the temperature drops below freezing. There's supposed to be places for people to be able to go inside so that they don't experience severe injuries as a result of the cold. And yeah, a lot of that kind of got brought up in the wintertime. A lot of, people in the community started opening up their own shelters. Like Trinity Church has, done a lot of that work on their own. And really just to like make up for the fact that the city has not been like doing anything to provide resources to people. So there was an event in December that, was targeted on, drawing attention to the lack of code purple shelters, the lack of a sanctuary camping infrastructure, and also was just kind of like an event for people in the community to come together and share space with one another and bond with one another. Like Nick was talking about before, just like being in a park with friends. So that was something that happened in December. And as a result of those events, that stemmed to these charges, where the charges at this point are associated with a code for felony littering, or aiding and abetting felony littering. And I'm pretty sure this is all stuff that's on arrest warrants. So I'm pretty sure I can say all of this. And Nick can also, like, if something sounds not right, please chime in. But the arrest warrants all have a citation that a amount of trash was left in a city park exceeding 500 pounds, which is the amount at which it becomes a felony offense. So each of us have been served with arrest warrants that are either directly for the felony littering or aiding and abetting that felony.
And also the arrests happened in like bunches. Like there was an initial group that received arrest warrants, and then there was like a pause, and then there were more. And for me personally, like I thought that it was all like done. Like I thought all of the warrants had happened because people were starting to get court dates. And then the day after my birthday, I received a letter stating that I was banned from city parks for a felony littering charge. I hadn't even been made aware of the fact that I had a warrant. Nothing had been communicated to me. This just showed up at my house, and I made the decision to self-surrender, as well as the other two people that received letters around the time I did. And so it was very weird, and it was very jarring because it was like 2 months after the initial activity had started, and it was very weird.
The Final Straw Radio is a proud member of the Channel Zero network of anarchist podcasts, and here's a jingle from another member of CZN.
I know the kind of pain you're feeling, Alex. I once had it myself.
You some kind of doctor?
No, Alex. I am Magneto, and I have come to offer you sanctuary.
Hello, this is our jingle for our podcast, The Grounded Futures Show.
This is the show where we discuss topics ranging from climate change to identity to how youth can gain new skills to thrive amid current and ongoing disasters that we are collectively facing. We are your hosts, one Gen Z Liam and one Gen X Carla. And we think we all deserve to thrive now and not in some distant utopian future.
Yeah, but that's in the future. Oh, I hate the future.
Yeah, we're with Bolin. Grounded Futures is a larger project, so check that out over at groundedfutures.com.
Yeah, that all sounds like super disorienting and really frightening. And also, I'm just like, felony littering just sounds like something that was like cooked up by like a neoliberal nightmare mind, you know? Like, do you know anything about, I don't, I'm asking if y'all know anything about like how that charge is usually like weaponized against folks?
From what one of our lawyers has said and from what I've like heard, well, first off, like the felony littering is really ridiculous. Asheville Free Press had done like some research and saw that like they have not like used this type of charge in like over a decade. So I'm like, yeah, y'all totally just brought it out of your ass. But from what it was like explained and from what I heard from like lawyers is that it can be used for either like businesses and commercial dumping if they're just like throwing like shit where they just like shouldn't be. It's like one example. And then from what I was like reading a little bit earlier today, it could also be like used for people who are like throwing their their trash from home into like a ravine or into a ditch or I don't know, any other nature part, and is like doing so I guess consistently, because I think about like 500 pounds, how much home trash you got. But you know, and then it also clicks a little bit more in my head of like the commercial businesses like just polluting and just like throwing their shit also in ravines and ditches.
Yeah, thank you for speaking to that. I could see it being like one of those, you know, coded charges that they like employ for their own reasons or whatever. So thanks for speaking on that.
Yeah, from what I understand, it also is something that local municipalities like to leverage against activists specifically.
I see. I suspected as much. Oh, God.
Yeah, and like to that specifically, a narrative that like we definitely like want to share is that employing a felony littering charge against like in this way when it's not like something like a corporation dumping all their garbage in a river is like it's an attack on mutual aid in the city. It's an attack on the work that's being done, and it is literally an act of state repression because it is just them choosing a charge that like technically maybe makes sense in their mind and employing it in a way that is completely unorthodox for the most part.
Indeed, and I'd actually really love to talk about the criminalization of mutual aid because that seems like it is 100% a factor here. Can you talk a little bit more about what kinds of threats does this legal situation pose to mutual aid, not just in Asheville, but, you know, all over the place?
Yeah, I think, you know, this is something that is not a new issue, that there have been organizations like across the US, across other countries as well, that have been engaging in mutual aid and have come across state repression in some way in the form of, you know, charges that make no sense or just in general trying to make the work hard, because the goal of mutual aid is really to challenge existing society, and it is based on a model of community care. It is based on people looking out for one another and people meeting each other's needs, and that is at a system that exists without the state. And so as a result, the state feels threatened by that. And so they find opportunities like this one to repress that because their existence is being threatened by it. In this instance in particular, Asheville, we've not just this, but other things have come out that have really just felt like direct targets on mutual aid efforts. Something that came out a couple of months ago was the city was entertaining the idea of an ordinance that would ban food sharing in public parks. Basically, they were trying to criminalize being able to come to the park and share food with people, which honestly, when you say it out loud, just seems ridiculous. But that coupled with these charges just really like kind of paints a narrative of the city targeting these efforts of care because they're feeling threatened, is my conjecture, at least. And then on top of that, the park ban that Nick mentioned before, by issuing bans to the folks that have received these charges, despite the fact that they have not been convicted, they are charges. This is like an active criminal thing. Nothing has been decided. There is still this ban, which basically takes, 15 folks and prevents them from being in public parks, which is a place that they know that this food sharing is happening, that they know that mutual aid is occurring. And the more that you like kind of tie it all together, the more it seems like, just a really fucked up narrative, I guess.
It also makes me think of just a complete sort of municipal or whatever, like government unwillingness to in any way approach the phenomenon of homelessness in a way that's like compassionate or creative or pro-human or anything like that. I think that the more I look at cities' responses to people who are homeless, the more I'm just like, you have no other wish than for folk to just simply disappear, which is just like, I mean, I'm not like expecting compassionate government because I'm not wired that way. Maybe that's too cynical. I have no idea, but it's just like, come on, and that to me is like also like a huge, huge issue.
Yeah. To tie like the tourist industry to the attack on mutual aid, I mean, like literally the cops are encouraged by city council and the mayor to make the folks that are living on the streets disappear. And they don't care how they make them disappear. They just don't want them, downtown where the tourists are, or in certain other parts of the city, or they don't want them visible. They don't want, because Asheville is touted as this progressive town, this quirky, fun, progressive town that people can come visit. And so they care very much for the way that they look. And if people see other humans living on the streets struggling, that makes the city look, in their eyes, that makes them look crappy. And they are very concerned about that image. And it's 100% all about that. They do not care what happens to these people. Honestly, if they were all to die tomorrow, I think they would be fine with that because they just want them gone. They don't care how it happens. They just want them gone.
Absolutely.
I also just wanted to add a little something about the attack on mutual aid. It made me think about how the attempt to ban like food sharing as well as like the parks ban. I just think about like the progression of how that's been going and the folks that I know who have been like, specifically like the way I was able to like show up is through like street side and attempting to like be consistent and making connection with folks. it's like through food sharing. Like that's literally how I was able to be introduced to that and fucking like start my connection with people. And now I know like folks who, because of the state and because of like APD in the city, Asheville Police Department in the city, it's now constant threats and fears of just literally like wanting to share food and make connection, which is fucking like rad. It's just that in it itself is like dangerous and amazing and awesome and caring. And it just, I don't know, I just thinking how people that I know that love and do that so much and put so much heart into that can't now because of these threats and because of APD and because of the city consistently stabbing people with all this stuff.
Yeah, I personally am not able to go to street side anymore. That was one of the first ways that I was introduced to mutual aid, was street side, and I love street side and I miss it. And I am the main person that like earns money in my household. And I have a job where if I were to like, get like, I have an actual, so like one of the conditions of my release is I can't go back to Aston Park, which is the park where we do a lot of food sharing. And if I were to be incarcerated for any period of time, there's a good likelihood that I would lose my job and potentially lose my license as a veterinary technician. And I can't run that risk because I could lose my home. And so I haven't been able to do something that I really, really like because of all this.
Yeah, thank you so much for giving voice to like how this entire situation is impacting your lives, both personally and politically. Like, it's extremely disruptive. It's extremely, just sounds like tedious and frightening, which is a really shitty combination. Is there anything more to say about this topic, like how you have seen these charges like impact the work around town?
Yeah, the last things I'm thinking of is, though these charges are fucked and it is so stressful and it's taking such a toll, it has like, as we've seen, like it's definitely taken an impact on folks who are able to like show up and do this work, because it's caring, and it's definitely made an impact because there are folks, like Elsa said, who can no longer show up because it literally runs a risk of their livelihood. And also, from what I've seen from these charges, from the impacts and effects in the community, are a lot of people making efforts to connect more in the broader sense of like folks who are doing other work in Asheville. So I think a lot about how, since the attempt at like banning food sharing, folks have also been meeting up with faith leaders who also do like a shit ton of work in the community. And that's another connection that people have been making or have had and just really have been pouring into that. And we've also garnered a lot of support. And being new to this movement, I've been like, wow, there's actually a shit ton of people who are like really down for this, as they should be. And though it sucks that I am witnessing this through this way, because of like facing this repression, I am very excited about how much more I can, myself and others can deep dive into the work of being stronger together.
Yeah, I would agree absolutely, and say that like there have been people that have reached out to the defendants and said like, what can we do? This is so messed up. How can we get involved? So it's kind of amazing how in some ways this has helped us like grow our community, and there is being more awareness brought to this issue, which is the exact opposite of, I think, what the state had hoped for.
That is really, really great to hear. I love that there has been a lot of support from the faith community. What kinds of support that y'all are seeking from listeners? Like, how can folk help support you? Are you asking for anything specifically?
Yeah. I think like one thing that I just really want to name in all of this is like, this has been really heavy and it's prevented folks from showing up in the ways that they have been showing up, but it doesn't mean that we're going to stop showing up. And mutual aid and like the work that we're doing is something that is going to shift and change and keep going, because all of us are here because we believe in a different world and we're all trying to build something. So we're not going to go away. We're just going to change the way that we're doing things. And I think like the number one ask that we've been like having in all of this is for folks to show up and be part of this, like be part of this building work that we're trying to do, and come out and meet your neighbors and share space with your neighbors and share food with your neighbors, get to know one another, start to like continue to deepen these like networks of people supporting one another and like just knowing people. And yeah, just keep fucking showing up. Like that's all we can really do. Like that's why we're here.
We do also have a website, and we are trying to raise funds. And some folks aren't completely satisfied with their representation, and like, you know, most of us don't really have the means to retain representation on our own. So we're definitely, you know, looking for folks to be willing to maybe, you know, help us out a little bit in that way. And we've been working on trying to really spread the word about what's going on to help further the issues of what is happening to unhoused communities, and try to pressure our local government and the people in power in general, trying to pressure and elevate these issues. So that's really important too, is people elevating these issues in their own spheres and having these conversations about what needs to happen, how they can be there in supportive ways for their own communities.
I love that. What is y'all's website, and how can people like read your solidarity statement, and how can people like keep up with what's going on for y'all?
Yeah, so our website is avlsolidarity.noblogs.org, and our Venmo is AVL Defendant Fund. Also, like for ongoing mutual aid work, folks are totally and encouraged to donate to Asheville Survival, and that's AVL Survival for Venmo. And then for like to resist future movement repression is Blue Ridge Anarchist Black Cross, you know. As well, there's Asheville for Justice, who does direct fund distribution. And to like what you had like asked earlier about like what support asks, also for people to keep talking about this. They can see our updates on Asheville Solidarity, like no blogs, as well as like Asheville Survival's Instagram. So keep talking about it. Please keep talking about it. Please keep updated with us. You can send us comments and little cute notes on our website, or if you have something to offer or support in any kind of way, or whatever that looks like, please. Creativity is everything. Please reach out. And also, back to what Ant was saying, like, please show up. Like, please keep showing up. I mean, like, this is what's gonna happen. Mutual aid is fucking sucks, and it's gonna be attacked, but, like, we are getting through this together, and that's how we will get through it. And so I'm only scared because of the state. Like, the state has brought this fear, but I'm gonna keep going. Like, this is the only way, is just to keep persevering and showing up. Also, if you got gear, please give us gear. Give Asheville Survival gear, tents, sleeping bags. I mean, that's distributed every single week directly to people living on the streets. Give money.
I love that so much. I think it's no small feat to approach moments of state repression with, yes, this sucks, but like we're still gonna keep showing up. And I think that takes a lot, you know, and I just want to like appreciate that so much and name that as well. And we'll link all of those sites that you mentioned with the Venmos and the websites and everything in our show notes. So those are all of the questions that I had scripted up. Thank you all so much for taking the time to have this chat. It's been a real pleasure to get to sit down with y'all and listen to what you had to say. Is there anything that we missed in this interview that you want to speak about in closing, or anything like that?
Thank you so much for just, helping us elevate these issues and having this conversation. It was really, really awesome.
Yeah, I want to echo that. Thank you for taking the time to let us talk. Appreciate it a lot. I just want to say, I would encourage anyone who is curious about any of this to research the sanctuary camp related things that have been going on around the country. There have been cities that have been making it happen and making it work and building this infrastructure, which is super cool. And I would encourage folks to do the research on that, and just, continuously encourage folks to hang in there and, be in solidarity with one another, and remember that there's something better out there for all of us.
And thank you for having this interview with us. Also that this has been going for oh my god, I don't even know how many fucking months it's been. 4+ months more. And how ridiculous this all is, and how much fucking money is being wasted on us right now to show up to court every single month to have these I don't think we talked about it, but we had a parks ban appeal meeting, which was ridiculous. Also, just a shit ton of money being wasted every single time they talk about it, show us, and interact with us, while those literally a fraction of that could literally be used for hygiene infrastructure in parks, public restrooms, hand washing stations. When did they open up any of those public restrooms again? I don't know. Not sure. Also, that District Attorney Todd Williams can drop our charges. Drop our charges, Todd Williams. You can do it any day now.
Yeah, we're waiting on you, Todd. Come on. Step up. And that was 3 people with the Asheville Camp Defendants, which is a group of 15 people here in Asheville facing legal charges related to food sharing and mutual aid. To donate to these folks, you can Venmo at AVL Defendant Fund. The defendants would also like to plug the Venmos of another Asheville-based mutual aid group, Asheville Survival Program, which is at AVL Survival, and the local anarchist Black Cross chapter, Blue Ridge ABC, and their Venmo is at Blue Ridge ABC.
If you would like to support The Final Straw, you can subscribe to our podcast via various platforms, follow and share our materials online, as well as give us feedback via the links at tfsr.wtf/tree, as in Linktree. To support our transcription work and wider project, you can subscribe to us via patreon.com/tfsr. You can also buy some merch or find donation methods at tfsr.wtf/support.
And now some words from anarchist prisoner Sean Swain.
What you say, what you say, what you say, what?
In the continuation of the tradition began by Sean Swain in 2019, naming those killed by police in the so-called U.S., I'll be reading Sean's segment. This information was compiled by the website fatalencounters.org and is from September of 2021. September 1st, Anne Marie Shilley, Connor Riley McDaniel, James Williams, Cameron Brown, Omar Hernandez Lozano. September 2nd, Christopher Derby, Dionisio Vatan Ahanel, John Clarence Voss Jr., Michael Ouellette. September 3rd, Adam Nicholas Alvarez, Elijah Thomas, Cedric Baxter, David Wayne Marshall Jr., Drew Lucero, Estevan Javier Ramirez, Jose Angel Francisco Vaca, Camila Young, Lisa Bernadette Garcia, Marcos Denali Paramo, Mark Edward Danley. Name withheld by police, Las Vegas, Nevada. Name withheld by police, Laredo, Texas. Nazir Lee Parks. September 4th, Jacob Andrew Legrand, Jorge Calleres, Spencer Allen Claiborne, Stephen Robert Johnson. September 5th, Devlin Glenn Voss, Frederick A. Thomas, Marina Ems. Name withheld by police, Nannyglo, Pennsylvania. Nathaniel Harvey Sr. September 6th, Christopher Z. Zenitini, Carla Rico, Kevin Wolf Frank Wolfenbar, Robert Gutierrez. September 7th, Anthony Cravo, Brandon Michael Watts, Cimarron Albert Christie, Craig Allen Knutson, Derek Scott Pearson, Joshua Charles Thornton, Josue Arias. Name withheld by police, Castle Rock, Colorado. Name withheld by police, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Richard Ricky D. Woods. September 8th, Akeem Lewis Brown, David Lopez, Leo Allen Ray. Name withheld by police, Bowling Green, Kentucky. Name withheld by police, Kansas City, Missouri. Roberto Andino, Stacy Lynn Watts, Kevin Fell. September 9th, Charles David Chivrell, Christopher Thomas Vauga, David Ray Williams, Eric H. Lau, William Daniel Escano Ya. September 10th, Cedric Ricardo Williams, Gavin Thomas Ouellette, Jesse B. Lees, Jesse Rickman, Joseph Anthony Mannard, Ledden Boykins, Nicholas Ouellette. September 11th, Demont L. Harris, Desmond D. Lewis, James Anderson. Name withheld by police, Ruidoso, New Mexico. Tristan Marcellus Vereen, William Frank Hall, Apolline Montguillemot. September 12th, Diane Pena. Name withheld by police, Winslow Township, New Jersey. Rodolfo Gonzalez. September 13th, Michael Jonathan Cortez. Name withheld by police, Channelview, Texas. Name withheld by police, Las Vegas, Nevada. Robert Parks, Tedman Warito. September 14th, Charles Frederick Sharp III, Paul J. Bruner. September 15th, Carrie Teresa Ojeda, Christopher George, Cody Levi Harrison, Diana Hernandez, Diedrich Jamon James, Jacob Hernandez, Kenzie Keys. September 16th, Andrew Drew Brandon Cree, Derek Dion Simpson, Katrina Simpson, Shane Marie Self. Name withheld by police, Cleveland, Ohio. Timothy Grayson, Dan Ross Boyd, Eric Keeson. September 17th, Jonathan Charles Carroll, Joshua Josh B. Castellano, Matthew Joseph Wilbanks. September 18th, Abigail Victorine Holliday, Adrian Lamont Cameron Sr., Christopher E. Rush, Harley Wayne Hill, James Andrew Black, Jason Thomas Houston. Name withheld by police, Ghent, Kentucky. Unsford Lewis Thurman III, Joshua Cooper. September 19th, Deshaun Sanders, Terrell Brown. September 20th, Dion Leday, Philip Lopez. September 21st, Brandy Renee Beta, Jose Antonio Ohuela Palma, Noah Daniel Boswell, Rodney Drake Key, Trent Xavier Leach. September 22nd, Daisha Vu Reynolds, Emilce de Leon, Irlene Marcloni Paz Caval, Jeffrey Lawrence Bishop, Troy Allen Engstrom, Tammy Beecham, Thomas Hungerford. September 23rd, Barry Heckard, Desmond Damon Lewis, Keith Cole. Name withheld by police, Elk Grove, California. Barry John Ross, Paul Brian Stone. September 24th, Jesse Leonard, Cedric Lofton. September 25th, Christian Smith, Gabriel Salazar, Jose Luis Jimenez Mora, Jose Molina Lara, Morena Charles Reed, Randall Anthony Thurman, Ronnie Andrew Garcia, Sandra Ortiz Barajas, Sergio Espinosa Flores. September 27th, Gloria Marie Strong, Joseph Arbor, Nathan Thomas Honeycutt, Manuela Mono Rodriguez. September 28th, Brandon Anthony Lopez, Leo Tony Chavez, Patrick Chin, Leonel Chavez. September 29th, Daniel Joseph Ledford, Kyle Anthony Veon, Stephen Phil Franco, Chaz Nathan McGowan. And September 30th, Carlos Antonio Douglas, Nicholas Norris, and William Castleman.
You can still write Sean at his new old new again address at Sean Swain, number A243205, OSP Youngstown, 878 Coitesville Hubbard Road, Youngstown, Ohio 44505. You can find his past writings, updates on his case, hear his past audio, find out how to get his books, plus ways to contribute to his legal defense fund at SeanSwain.org. Psst. You can Cash App $Swaniac 1969 or send dough to us and comment that it's for Swain's defense. More info is also available on Instagram at Swaniac 1969 or Twitter at SwainRocks.